Once upon a time, in the quiet village of Roselane, nestled between meadows and woods, lived a girl named Cinderella. Her real name was Ella, but after her stepmother forced her to sleep near the fireplace, her clothes were always covered in ash. Cinderella became the nickname they used to mock her, and it stuck. Her father had died years ago, and in his absence, her stepmother, Lady Tremaine, showed no kindness. Her two daughters, Anastasia and Drizella, were pampered and spoiled. They treated Cinderella not as a sister, but as a servant. Every morning, before the sun rose, Cinderella was awake, fetching water, sweeping floors, and preparing breakfast for everyone else. She worked all day without thanks. Her only friends were the house mice and birds who kept her company as she sang softly through her chores. But Cinderella had something no one could take: her gentle spirit. Every night, she sat by the cracked window and whispered her dreams to the stars. I wish, just once, to be seen, to be free, to dance and laugh like a girl, not a maid. And though the stars didn't speak back, they listened. One bright morning, as Cinderella gathered water from the well, trumpets echoed through the village. A golden carriage arrived in the town square, followed by men in royal blue uniforms. The royal herald unrolled a scroll and read aloud, "By command of His Majesty the King, a grand ball shall be held in honor of the Crown Prince. All maidens of suitable age are invited. The prince shall choose a bride." The village erupted in chatter. Women giggled, mothers squealed, and young girls dreamed of catching the prince's eye. Back at home, Anastasia and Drizella shrieked with excitement. They ran about, demanding fabrics, jewelry, and new shoes. Cinderella smiled quietly and asked, "May I go to the ball too?" Lady Tremaine raised a brow. "You? Go to the royal ball? In what ashes and rags?" "But the invitation says all maidens are invited," Cinderella said softly. Her stepmother smirked. "Fine. If you finish every single chore and find something decent to wear, you may go." Her stepsisters cackled. They knew she'd never manage it. Still, Cinderella's heart fluttered with hope. In the days leading up to the ball, Cinderella worked harder than ever. She cleaned, cooked, washed, sewed, polished shoes, and even fixed a broken table, all while tending to the endless complaints of her stepsisters. But each night, while they slept, she stitched an old dress that had belonged to her mother. With a little lace from the attic and beads donated by her animal friends, she made something simple but beautiful. On the night of the ball, after helping the others dress in extravagant gowns, Cinderella quickly changed into her creation. She descended the stairs, heart pounding. Drizella turned and froze. "What are you wearing?" Lady Tremaine's eyes narrowed. "Where did you get that gown?" I made it," Cinderella said softly. Before she could say more, the stepsisters lunged. They tore the dress apart, ripping the sash and scattering the beads. "You can't go looking better than us," Drizella hissed. Cinderella ran to the garden, sobbing. Her gown was in tatters, her dreams crushed. Alone beneath the stars, Cinderella fell to her knees near the fountain. "I tried," she whispered. "I did everything right. But why is kindness never enough?" As she cried, a warm light surrounded her. The wind whispered. Birds perched on branches, still as statues. A soft voice filled the air. "Do not cry, dear child." Cinderella looked up and gasped. An elegant woman in a silver cloak stood before her. Her eyes shimmered like moonlight. "Who are you?" Cinderella asked. "I am your fairy godmother," the woman smiled. "You believed in magic when the world gave you none. That is a rare gift." She waved her wand, and instantly, a pumpkin from the garden transformed into a golden carriage. For mice grew into majestic white horses. A lizard turned into a proud coachman. And Cinderella's rags melted away into a dazzling blue gown, sparkling like a midnight sky. Two glass slippers formed on her feet, glowing as though spun from starlight. But remember, the fairy godmother warned gently, when the clock strikes midnight, the magic ends. Cinderella wiped her tears, smiled, and curtsied. Thank you with all my heart." The palace glittered like a dream, its towers glowing with golden lanterns. Nobles danced beneath chandeliers, and laughter filled the grand hall. Then, gasps rippled through the crowd. Cinderella stepped in, radiant and graceful. The music slowed. All eyes turned to her. The prince, surrounded by suitors he barely noticed, froze when he saw her. "Who is she?" he whispered. As she descended the stairs, he approached. "I'm not sure where you came from," he said, offering his hand. "But would you dance with me?" Their hands touched, and the world seemed to disappear. They danced, and danced, and danced. One song flowed into the next. She laughed at his jokes. He smiled at her heart. From across the room, Anastasia and Drizella stared, not recognizing the glowing beauty before them. "She looks familiar," Anastasia muttered. Lady Tremaine narrowed her eyes, suspicious. But nothing could ruin the magic of the moment. Not yet. The palace clock began to toll. Dong, dong. Cinderella froze. "What time is it?" she whispered, suddenly panicked. The prince leaned in. "Midnight. Why?" Her eyes widened. I must go." Without another word, she turned and fled through the crowd, her dress shimmering as she ran. The prince called after her, bewildered, pushing through confused guests. Cinderella rushed down the palace steps, her heart pounding. Dong, dong. As she reached the final step, her glass slipper slipped off, but she didn't stop. She couldn't. She dashed across the courtyard, and as the final chime struck, dong, the magic vanished. Her gown turned back to rags. The golden carriage shrunk into a pumpkin. The horses scampered back into mice. She stood in the middle of the road, panting, barefoot, with only the stars as her witness. Back in the palace, the prince picked up the single glass slipper, stunned. "She didn't tell me her name. I don't even know who she is." But one thing was clear. He would not rest until he found her. The king, eager for a royal marriage, ordered guards to search the kingdom. "Every maiden shall try on the slipper," the prince declared. "She who fits it shall be my bride." From villages to valleys, the royal guards knocked on every door. Noble women, merchants' daughters, and peasant girls all tried. But the slipper fit none. At Lady Tremaine's manor, the guards arrived early. Drizella shoved her foot into the slipper, grunting and groaning. Anastasia tried to squeeze her heel in, but it bulged over the edge. "Sorry," the guard said politely. "Is there another maiden in the house?" Lady Tremaine, in a cold voice, replied, "No one else of interest lives here." But from the kitchen doorway, Cinderella peeked out quietly. Kind guard spotted Cinderella. "What about her?" Lady Tremaine stepped forward sharply. "She's just a servant." But the royal decree was clear: all maidens must try. Reluctantly, Lady Tremaine stepped aside. Cinderella walked calmly into the room. She sat down. The guard knelt before her and slid the glass slipper onto her foot. A perfect fit. Gasps filled the room. But then, with a soft smile, Cinderella reached into her pocket and revealed the second slipper. Anastasia and Drizella stood frozen. Their mother's face turned pale. At that very moment, the prince stepped into the room. His eyes lit up. "It's you," he breathed. "I knew I'd find you." Cinderella stood, curtsied gracefully, and smiled. "And I never thought you'd come looking." He took her hand gently. "Come with me. Be my queen." Word spread across the kingdom. The mysterious maiden had been found. The prince's bride was not a princess, not a noblewoman, but a girl who once lived in ashes. The palace bells rang as Cinderella arrived in a carriage, this time not by magic, but by honor. Her animals watched from the garden walls, chirping proudly. Her stepsisters begged for forgiveness, clinging to her gown. "We didn't know it was you." Cinderella looked at them kindly. "I forgive you," she said, "but I will never forget." Lady Tremaine stood in silence, shamed and defeated. The royal wedding was grand, but Cinderella's favorite part was the simple vows they exchanged beneath a glowing sky. The prince held her hand not because of magic, but because of love. Cinderella, once bound to cinders and silence, now ruled beside the prince, not as a decoration, but as a wise, gentle, and graceful queen. She brought fairness to the palace staff, kindness to orphans, and hope to girls who once felt invisible. Every night, she stood on her balcony and looked at the stars, the same ones she once whispered her wishes to. And though the fairy godmother never returned, Cinderella knew she was still watching. She wore her glass slippers only once a year. On the anniversary of the night, everything changed. Not to show off, but to remind herself of one truth. Even the smallest dream, when held with hope and kindness, can change a life forever.